This is section 11.5. What we're going to be looking at here is data in order to try to create the best fit model for some information. The models we're going to be looking at as our choices for today will be the linear model, y equals mx plus b. It could be quadratic, which will be a parabola in shape, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. We could have a cubic model, y equals ax to the third plus bx squared plus cx plus d. Remember, that one looks like the snaky s. Or it could be exponential growth or decay, y equals a times b to the x. You'll need your book again for this one, and you'll need your graphing calculator for sure. How are we going to try to figure out this information? Well, it's all calculator related, so these are the steps we're going to be using on our calculator. First off, you need to turn on your stat plots. Where are your stat plots? So calculator. Stat plot is above y equals, way up here on the far left. So you're going to go to your y equals button. You're going to arrow up to the top to the word plot 1 where it's dark. Hit enter. And if you arrow back down again, that plot 1 box should be dark. The other way you can do it is to go second stat plot. So above the y equal is the word stat plot. You can go second stat plot. And choice number 1, it'll say plot 1. It'll either say the word on or off. So if you hit enter, this is now plot number 1. You want to make sure that the word on has the black box on it. If it's on the word off, then you just have to use your left-hand arrow, hit enter, and now the word will be on. Now the type. The type that we're going to be graphing is the first choice. This is a choice of scatter plots. So you want to make sure that your black box is dark on the first choice. Not over here, not on a bar graph, not on the next choices there. We're going to actually be, you actually did these previously, your box and whisker plots. You want to make sure that is way over here on the first choice, which is the dots. Now, X list and Y list. You want both of these to say L1 and L2. There's no reason that yours should say something other than that right now. And then down here, the mark. You can choose whatever you want for mark. The farther down you go, the smaller your dots are. Sometimes they're harder to read. I usually leave mine right here on the square. And then some of you have an older calculator. You won't have a choice as to what color that you want them to be. This won't even be existent, so you can pick whatever color you want. All right, so our stat plots are turned on. So we're ready to go there. The second thing we do is enter our data into what's called list 1 and list 2. Enter our data into list 1 and list 2. So I'll go back to my calculator. If you go to your stat button, so look for the green alpha and look over 2 buttons to the right of that. There's a button that's called stat. You want to go to that stat button, and choice number 1 is edit. If you just hit enter, here is where all of your lists will occur. You have lots of lists in your calculator. Right now you might be able to see up through list 4, maybe list 5, depending on how big your calculator is. I can see up through list 5. We're going to be using list 1 and list 2. Now if you have something in those lists right now, you want to make sure you can erase them or get rid of them. The way you can do that, and I'm in list 2 right now because the 26 has the black box on it. All you have to do is arrow up to the top so the name of your list is highlighted dark. Hit that, hit the clear button, hit enter, and it erases all of them at the same time. I can arrow over one, arrow up to the top of list 1, hit clear, hit enter. So I have a clean slate when I start every new problem. Before you see what your picture looks like, you need to make sure you reset your window every time. All of your data is going to be different values. They could be negative, some of them could be really high, in the hundreds numbers. You need to make sure you reset a window to match the data that you're doing. Otherwise, you won't be able to see your picture. Once we have our data entered and we reset the window, we're going to hit the graph button. That will show us a shape, and we're going to decide what type of model it is based on the shape. So again, if I go back here, these are the shapes we're looking for. Straight line, parabolic, snaky S-curve, or an exponential growth curve. Once we pick our shape, then what we want to do is try to figure out the equation. So I'm going to go to our calculator again. We're going to calculate what we think is the equation. So if we think it's quadratic, then we're going to choose the quadratic model. And I think I forgot that on here. So that's under your stat button again. And then we're going to go over to calculate. So let me go to your calculator again. If you hit your stat button, and if you arrow over to calculate, this is where your choices are. Choice number 4 is the straight line. Choice 5 is the quadratic, that's your parabola. Choice 6 is the cubic, and then should be right after that. Choice 10, this one, exponential. So we'll either take choice 4, 5, 6, or you'll have to arrow down and find exponential. Once you find the type of model that you want, you're going to hit enter, and it'll come up with the equation that you're looking for. Once we get to that stage, then I'm going to show you how we can cut and paste. This was StatCalc. I'll show you how to cut and paste the equation, and then it'll draw the line right on top of our dots. Once we have the line drawn, then we just want to come back in and we make sure that we write the model. Okay, so this is a lot of steps, but I'm going to talk you through an example using your calculator, and we're going to do this example that's from your book. It's on page 477. It's question number 5. So everybody needs their graphing calculator handy, and I hope you have your book. Okay, so example number 5. The first thing we have to do is enter our data. Your data, again, is in the stat button. Stat, and you hit edit, which is choice number 1. That brings you to your lists. All right, now list 1 will be all of your X numbers. So if you look at your data from page 777, your X numbers, in order, you're just going to start typing them. After you hit each number, then it's enter. So -5, enter. -4, enter. And so on, right down the line. Once you have each of your numbers in your first list, always go back, make sure you didn't type anything incorrectly. That's definitely one way to make sure you get a wrong answer, is to have something like you typed in -55 instead of -5. So you want to make sure you double check your numbers. Then you can arrow over into list 2. It should take you right to the top, and then you can go ahead and enter those numbers as well. Okay, I have all of my numbers entered, hopefully you do too, and you check them to make sure that they are correct. Once you have your information in, now remember we have to set our window to make sure that our window matches our data. Go to your window button. We want to have our window set to match our data. Our X numbers started from -5 and went up to 2. I need to be able to see all of those. So I could maybe try -10. And then up to, how high do we need to go? We have to be able to see at least the number 2, so I'm just going to make mine, for instance, 10. -10 to 10, and then count by ones is fine. The Y values. The smallest Y value we have is -20. I need to make sure I can see all of that. Be conservative, be safe. You could say -30. My highest number is 18, so maybe I want to go up to +30. I should be able to see anything. And then counting by, you could pick 5s, you could pick 10s, that's fine. And remember the X-res button, you want to always be on 1. Now you should be able to hit your graph button. Remember we already turned on our stat plots. So if you forgot to turn your stat plots on, make sure you go back and do that, because you should see some type of a shape. So now you have to decide, do these dots look like they're in the form of a straight line? Do they look like they're a parabola? Do they look like they're a snaky S-curve? Do they look like they're exponential growth? Well, if I were to look at this and maybe sort of project, I might think, okay, this looks like they're following kind of a snaky S-curve look. So I'm going to guess cubic. Well, we want to find out what that equation is. So we're going to go to our stat button again. We're going to arrow over once to calc, and now we're going to pick cubic, which is choice number 6. Our numbers come from list 1 and list 2. With your newer calculator, you're going to need to do this. Arrow down and just hit calculate. If you have an older calculator, you should be able to just go ahead and do stat calc choice number 6 and hit enter. These are your numbers that should show up. So this, we think, is the model for our line. So now what we want to do is this magic little cut and paste. So the way we do that, you go back to your y equals screen. You want to make sure that you don't have anything typed in left over from a long time ago. If you do, just hit the clear button. Now you go to your stat button. You're going to arrow over once to, oh no, excuse me, wrong choice. We're going to go to the vars button. Now you're going to take choice number 5. You're going to arrow over twice to EQ, and then choice number 1 is regular equation, reg EQ. Hit enter, and it just did a magic little cut and paste into your equation. So now if you hit your graph button one more time, it's going to take your equation and draw the line right on top of your dots. And that shows that we picked the good choice. This is actually a quadratic model, or a cubic model, excuse me. So now again we have to go ahead and write the actual model. So I'm going to go back to my screen here, and the model that we had chosen, 0.86, well, let me go back to the calculator one more time. I wrote this in before. This is what the numbers should be. So let's go back and look at our calculator. Remember, we put it into y equals. So here it is, 0.87 x to the third plus 4.00, I'll start arrowing over here, 4.00, a lot of decimals, x to the second, plus 0.9 x minus 6.4. So I have taken that and I chopped off a lot of those extra decimals, and there's our model that we're looking for. Okay, so if you didn't get that last piece, write this in. This is how you do your little magic cut and paste. You go to your y equals screen. Choice is vars, number 5, arrow over once to EQ, and then pick choice number 1, which is regular EQ. That goes cut and paste. And then you can hit your graphing button again to get your equation to show up on there. Okay, so those are your steps. Keep this set of steps handy as you try your homework now for section 11.5.